There's so much I want to get into how the the cultivation of this meat occurs. So, from my understanding, you get these stem cells from. Is it stem cells that you get from the animals, or is it just all cells?
Well, basically, what we need for starting this process are, in general, they are stem cells. There are different types of stem cells, but those are the ones that are normally used for starting the production
Right.
of culture meat.
And so, walk me through this process. You go to an animal and you withdraw some blood, however you do that, with a syringe or whatever that may be. And then, what do you do with that?
Yeah, so basically, normally you obtain the cells. Let's say um, there's different processes. So one is by obtaining a tiny sample from the animal, which is called a biopsy, and that's something that is normally done also in humans as well when they need to look for certain diseases. For example, they take samples of tissue, and they are really, really small samples. So in theory, the animal it's not harmed at all during this process. The interesting part as well is that depending on the company or the researcher, samples can also be withdrawn from, for example, an egg, or there are some researchers that have been using even a feather to withdraw the
Wow.
initial samples. So that's just to give an idea of how harmless the process is. And once you have that sample, what you do is you isolate some cells, and those are the stem cells. Now, there are different types of stem cells, and all of them have advantages and disadvantages based on, it's really depending on the process that scientists are following. But let's say that one type of stem cells are called myosatellites, and those are stem cells that are found within the muscle tissue. And one of their main characteristics is that these cells allow us to, they can multiply and produce more more muscle cells. So these myosatellite cells are already muscle cells that can divide into more muscle cells, and that will help us produce more tissue at the end. Now, one of the advantages of using myosatellites during the process is that they are already differentiated. But one of the disadvantages is that they have just a certain amount of dividing processes that they can achieve. So at some point, these cells, let's say they age and they can't multiply anymore. So that's a disadvantage, because what we want is huge quantities of cells to produce massive amounts of meat. So scientists are also looking at other type of stem cells, which are, let's call neutral cells. I call them neutral cells because they can differentiate in any type of cell that we want. They can differentiate into skin, into muscle, into fat. So those are great because then we can they can multiply several times, way more than myosatellite cells. But the problem is that because they can be differentiated in so many different types of tissues, it's hard to control them, and like they are not so stable. So that's one of the challenges of using those kind of cells. So right now, scientists are actually trying to figure out what's the best way to go, which type of cells are the best in terms of allowing us to produce massive amounts. And that's actually part of the research that is going through to figuring out how to produce stable cell lines that will allow us to produce huge quantities of cells at the end.
Right. I wonder if, as you were talking about the issue with